Across Northern Ireland, we've always had a knack for making things. From the shipyards and mills that built our heritage.
This is linen in its most natural form.
To the engineers and innovators shaping what comes next.
The plant actually runs at 3.5 tonne an hour.
Our industries have left their mark on our towns and people.
Very, very nice.
Go on, boy.
This is a story of craft and community. This is Homemade. Coming up in this episode, we meet the next generation of designers reinvigorating the textile industry here. But before taking a look at the future, we're going to see how our rich textile heritage is being preserved. The linen and textile industry is woven into the very fabric of life here. In its heyday, the industry employed over 40% of Northern Ireland's working population. So it stands to reason that there's a huge amount of heritage being preserved here in the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum. Valerie looks after the textiles collection here. More than 30,000 items built up over 60 years.
I feel we've got a very complete picture from the yarn in its rawest state, through to the designs, through to the finished textiles.
How would you sum up that influence that the industry has had on communities here?
Well, I always feel that you can't really go too far across Northern Ireland without bumping into somebody who either has a family connection to shipbuilding and engineering, or to the linen industry or the stitching industry in some respect. And my own family background is the same, and that's actually a very common story. We're talking about an industry that employed hundreds of thousands of people over a very long period of time.
I'm sure you get plenty of people come in with their own stories about their own families as well.
We do, and in fact that's a very important role for the museum, is to capture those stories for the future. One of the biggest and most focused projects that we've had in the last 30 years from an archive point of view is what we call the Living Linen Archive. And that has resulted in an archive of over 300 oral interviews with people who worked in the linen industry in one respect or another. It's an incredibly important and significant archive to have. If you don't collect those stories soon, you may find that those people with those first-hand experiences are no longer with us. This is what's called a proof cloth.
And how old would this be?
This is actually dated 1922, which is lovely because this is the factory report card attached to it. So that gives us a very specific date, which is lovely. We love things like that in a museum. And this is what a finished napkin would look like. It has a really beautiful lustre off it. It's one of the lovely characteristics of linen, I think.
As Valerie shows us a few of the items from the museum collection, it's clear that linen was made to last. And that could help it find renewed relevance in the future as focus on sustainability grows.
Linen is actually extremely topical as a fabric at the minute, with the whole focus now, as it should be, on sustainability. In the past, cotton was known as king cotton and linen was known as the queen of fabrics. It's probably one of the few fabrics that I feel actually gets more beautiful as it wears. It acquires just another kind of lustre and feel. But with the emphasis on sustainability in the textile industry at the minute, people are increasingly now looking at linen and fibres like hemp to see something that maybe doesn't abuse as many resources in its production, that has a longer lifespan and that has so many qualities that are good and sustainable.
The Ulster Folk and Transport Museum not only preserves our linen heritage, but also brings it to life for visitors. Their skilled team of weavers making it look easy. But it's not just the museum here that aims to keep our textile heritage alive. In County Armagh stands Dan Winter's cottage. complete with thatched roof, mud walls and a 300-year-old loom. For Colin Winters, this is a family home.
Well, I'm the 7th generation of from Dan Winter, and I was born and reared in this house. Well, I wasn't born in the house, but I was reared in the house. I was 2 days old whenever I come home, and we lived in this house up to 1988. So the house has changed very little over them years, and there's a big family of us reared in this house. Dan Winter's cottage was built in 1623, and it's the longest mud wall thatched cottage in Ireland, at 98 feet to 100 feet long, because it's not a straight wall in the house, so it's very hard to measure exactly how long it is. The loom's over 300 years old, and Dan Winter's son was a weaver, and he was known. You had Dan that lived at the low end of the cottage, and you had Gable Dan who lived at the top end of the cottage, and it was just a way of telling the difference between the fa and the son, so they nicknamed the Dan Gable Dan, because the gable was out onto the road.
How important do you think it is to preserve weaving?
Oh, I mean, that's our history. It's very important to keep, to keep our traditions and our history going. And it was so important to people years and years ago, Even today, people comes into the cottage and they worked right up to the 1980s, 1990s. And I'm surprised that many people comes into the cottage whenever they see the weaving loom. How it's not that long ago since it's really quit. Yeah. And it just brings them people back to whenever they were working in the big weaving places. Certainly wouldn't see a book like this every day. You wouldn't be carrying it about everywhere. But this is the original book that came out of Blackers Mill and Portadown, and it's just you go through it and it shows you all the different weaves in it, and how they done it is unreal.
I know, and how intricate they are.
This was given to me about maybe 15-20 years ago. It was given to me for the cottage because people that knew that I had the weaving loom on, and it just gave it to me. I would say this is probably the only cottage in Northern Ireland who still has the original loom in it. We know there's a few, still a couple down south, but this would be the only one in Northern Ireland who still has the original loom.
You'd be forgiven for thinking that machinery such as this loom is a relic of times gone by, with no place in a commercial company. But there is one textile producer here in Northern Ireland that's combining heritage production methods with modern manufacturing. In the heart of the Upperlands, just outside Mahara, sits this beetling mill, believed to be one of the oldest in Europe. Take a look inside and the noise is deafening. Fabric moves through the mill, repeatedly pounded by heavy wooden hammers. The process takes around 20 days in total, and is a skill so niche that William Smith, operating the mill, is the last remaining beetler in Ireland. And while it looks like something out of a museum, this mill is part of a commercial company. William Clark & Sons is the oldest surviving linen mill in Ireland, with the village here being built by the company's first owner to house workers. And that makes linen very much part of the social fabric of Upperlands.
The company would have looked after the people from cradle to grave, as they said. They would have owned the housing, that would have been part of your remunerance. They would have been very much on the social side of things. And the village now, you can't really go through this village without having someone who has either worked in Clark's or numerous family members of Clark's. So there's very much a kind of community ownership of the business, and they're very much, would like to see the business continue and thrive, and things like the beetling that go right the way back to the start of this. There's people who will come and say, my grandfather used to work in such and such, or you can't go too far that you have met someone, and not just in Upperlands, in the locale as such. There's lots and lots of people. It's intertwined in the community.
Born and bred in the Upperlands, former factory manager Nigel knows firsthand what the industry means to the locals here.
49 years my father worked in the company, my mother worked on it about 30 years, my sister worked on it about 25 years, so we've all been through it. This whole village grew up around the Clark family. They started the industry, then they built houses for the workers, and then the better job you had, the better house you got. They worked, the Clark family were really sensible. They kept everything in the village. After the war they built a big hall, they had a memorial hall, they had a snooker club at one side, they had dart teams, they had a British Legion club at the other side, they had football teams, bowling teams, cricket teams, badminton club. everything sort of in the village, as Nan said, you worked together, you played together, and the whole village just sort of mucked in together. People give their life really to it, and they enjoyed it, and met their friends through it, and got married through it and everything, so that's the way it was, you know.
In their more modern premises, it's clear just how much textile production has changed from traditional mills. But it is, of course, an industry facing a multitude of challenges. And that became all too clear in December 2024, when the company suddenly went into administration. It was, however, given a lifeline from the agriculture industry, when Andrew Wilson, a long-standing customer who worked with the company to produce cow mattresses, decided to buy it.
So we approached the liquidator and we struck a deal to buy the assets, i.e. the equipment and the machines that we needed to run our processes. On the side of it then, it was mentioned to us about the Beetland mill here and how it would be shut down for the last time. And this is a big heritage thing in Upperlands, as we know. So I thought we can't let this end. It means a lot. Like there's a local community group here. They have the museum across from the Beetland house that we're stood in front of here and the cafe. So it's a huge badge of honour to have it still continuing. And especially when it's the last commercially run beetle house in the world on their doorstep. So that's how the business began. So it's right back to grassroots.
The hope now is that under new ownership, the company can both preserve its heritage and diversify to secure its future.
We see trends in terms of how things are changing, in terms of fibres, in terms of sustainability especially, you know, and you have to be able to react to that because fashion just does not stand still, and that's kind of fundamentally whether it's for homeware, for clothing, in the textile industries that you're doing, especially then as well, geotextiles as well, and using equipment to make materials greater than the sum of their parts, so to speak, and adapt to that. And people come to you with problems. How do we make something? How do we improve something? And that's fundamental to textile processes in the region.
Coming up after the break, we meet the students hoping to breathe new life into the textile industry here. Textiles are, of course, rooted in our heritage, but that's not stopping young people from breaking into the industry. And here at Belfast School of Arts in Ulster University, it's clear just how popular a career path that is. From embroidery and print to knit and weave, students here learn not only about manufacturing techniques, but also the history behind the industry. Northern Ireland obviously has a very rich textile heritage. How important is it to teach students coming through their connection with that heritage?
It's very important, I think, that we understand our past. If we understand our past, we can understand our future. I think that textiles is in all of our DNA. If you think about over 100 years ago, 40% of our population were employed in the textile industry, and that would include the linen industry and also Mackies, the machine making industry as well, that actually made the machines to spin and to weave. So I think if you talk to any student, not just in textile, art, design and fashion, but across Northern Ireland, they will have some connection to the textile industry. They will have, maybe a grandparent or a great aunt or uncle who worked in the industry. So I think it is super important.
Do you find that heritage is something that students that you see coming through here want to incorporate into their own work?
Absolutely. There's definitely, looking to the past, that rich heritage is often, foundational to their projects and their ideas. It comes through in both their practice-based subjects, but also in their written subjects. So I think it is, it's very important for the students actually to understand the position that the textile industry, whether that's linen or wool, played, in the past in Northern Ireland, and actually what it means to them today.
These first-year students are just at the beginning of their journey, but the course's graduates and residents are already weaving our heritage into their modern designs.
I specialised in embroidery, and I used the illustrations from Alice in Wonderland to create like artwork about mental health and lots of different stuff like that. So it was quite dark, and I made it into garments that then walked the fashion show.
I specialised in print, in screen printed textiles, and I took inspiration from like the Irish landscape and textures and stuff within it, and as well as the Irish language and how it's kind of unappreciated now. And I made silk headscarves, which also walked the runway in the fashion show.
A lot of like the research and stuff that I did was about like Irish linen, and a lot of my work was based on handkerchiefs and like the history of that, and like how embroidery fitted into that. And then the fabric that I used was all like recycled, like either Irish linen or cotton. So I was sort of mindful about that, like not like buying fabric, like going out and looking for stuff just to be a bit more sustainable.
Through the past 3 years in lectures and stuff, they teach you a lot about the Irish heritage with like textiles and the Irish linen, and even sustainability and stuff. They teach you a lot about it.
I specialised in fashion design, and my graduate collection was based on poisonous plants found in Ireland. Because my work is based on sort of the landscape of Ireland, I would have also looked a lot on the folklore and looked to bring this in, so that aspect of the heritage was sort of brought through in this, the folklore and fairy tales related to that.
I was particularly inspired by quilts from the 1890s that had signatures embroidered into them by the people within my parish, and I wanted to bring that history forward into my work by like collecting names of those who live there now and add that in, and then also just touching on the area I'm from in Lisburn with the big history of linen production. I was considering what materials to use in my work based on the industry there.
So what's your assessment of the industry as a whole here in Northern Ireland at the minute?
Well, I think it's wonderful to see those SMEs, those ambitious, entrepreneurial, spirited young people, you know, across. We have so many of them, but I'm thinking if you look at talking about linen, we're talking about Kindred. We also have many students that are setting up their own businesses, whether that be in embroidery or knitwear, which is fantastic, because that's where you can see you know, that industry flourishing and thriving and growing, and that's very important that students see that trajectory.
There are plenty of success stories to come out of the university, and next up we're off to meet one in Banbridge. Ellen has always had a passion for fashion and design, but it wasn't until lockdown during the pandemic that she was able to work full-time on her business.
Whenever I was in my final year of uni, I was studying fashion and textiles down at Ulster University, and I was majoring in fashion, and this was my graduate project, and it just kind of kept rolling from there. And then with COVID and all the spare time that we had, it just kind of snowballed.
From humble beginnings in her parents' garage, Ellen's streetwear brand went from strength to strength. So much so that she secured premises for her own shop here in Banbridge.
I just happened to stumble across this place. It was perfect. It has store, it has studio. I can share the space with everybody. I can show where I work. Banbridge is really well known for its linen history, so it's kind of a nice little nod to it that, yeah, you know, like we've still got manufacturing going on here. I think the local scene in Ireland just in general has really like evolved. Like people have really got on board behind it. People love to see like a local creator and stuff. And yeah, so it's really exciting to see, and it's really nice to be a next step in that now. And as much as linen maybe was in the past, that there's new modern ways of stuff being made here in Ireland as well, rather than people just thinking it has to be the old ways or no ways.
And for Ellen, sharing where and how her clothes are made is key.
Even whenever I bring clothes to markets or share it with people, and they're like, they see it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, but I made it. they're like, no you didn't. And I'm like, yes I did. Like people don't expect it, especially with like a local brand. They think that you buy it and stick a name on it or just embroider it and print it. So it's really, really special. People get to come in here and I'm maybe upstairs and shout down to them like, oh I'm up here, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm just finishing off one of the things, and I can bring it down to the rail and stuff. So it's really, really nice that people get to see that. And then we also do a thing called Fleece Club, where you can come and design your own fleece. So say you really liked purple with, well, let's say you wanted it with a pink sleeve and then maybe a blue sleeve, and you wanted maybe a cheetah top bit. So I always think like the minis are a great way for people to like see it come together. Like you can see every little part of like what it's going to be. So yeah, you'll kind of pick what kind of fleece it, or what colours you like and where you want them to be and what design you want it to be. And then I usually find making this little mini helps it out, and then I'll work it out and fill out all the details on the sheets. And then yeah, that's your final design good to go, and then we'll add it to our little production line and I'll get making it. So even though people might be like, oh, that looks class, and then they'll maybe be like, oh, but I could get it in Primark for half the price and stuff. That was kind of my first worry. I was like, people are going to think, why would I pay that when I could pay this for it? Whereas having the store, having this space, having Fleece Club, it's just got people so involved in it. And then people that are following the story, so they might get one fleece and then someone might say, oh, where's that from? And they're like, oh, it's this like cool local brand that I found. And they'll come back for another fleece, and then suddenly they've got their little fleece collection that they just want to keep adding to, rather than kind of shopping something that everyone else has, or whether it's that they've designed their own fleece and they want to wear it and show it off rather than the same fleece that everyone else has, maybe from a big like high street store and stuff. So yeah, it's really nice to see.
Coming up next time on Homemade. From potatoes to pigs, we take a look at the farming industry here in Northern Ireland.